Home the gold.
He could be too far. No, he's digging. Oh, what a catch!
Puts a spicy forehand out in front of Naomi Morcilla.
Wu for the win. Team Canada. Darren Wu!
Santos with the layout grab.
Oh, that fantastic grab. The claws of Chaffer.
Canada just became the world champions.
Canada and the rest of the world. You're listening to the Huckin A podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Theo Wan, from the best city in the world, Toronto, Ontario.
Well, I'm Danie Proby from Vancouver, BC. Arguably the best place to live. Maybe the most expensive, but the best place. You got mountains, you got ocean, you got it all. This is your coast-to-coast guide to all things Canadian Ultimate. Theo and I are already fighting, so it's going to be a saucy episode. Theo, you're clearly feeling a little bit competitive right now. How was your weekend?
Always. I like your segues. Like, you just know what we're going to talk about. It's good. It's like it was written down or something. It's like it was written down.
Imagine
which
that.
is nice. I know, right? People think we just ad-lib, but we do.
I mean, that was ad-libbed. Give me credit.
That's true. So I do like the banter. But yes, on the weekend I traveled to Ottawa, which we'll talk about later with Julia, our guest, talking about the Canada Cup season. And so I went to Ottawa, commentated at TD Place, amazing building. I'll talk about it more later, so I'm not going to say more about that. But at the time of this recording, played a spike ball tournament. Round net is actually the word I should say. Round net tournament in Toronto on the beach. And our team was called One Chance because it was my one chance at gold. Because we were partnered or suggested to partner with someone that's like a higher level. So like there was an advanced intermediate side and an intermediate rec side. So top advanced players were supposed to pair with intermediate players or high intermediate players. So I am not advanced yet. I'm still high intermediate. So I partnered with a high advanced person and we lost in the round of 16. I guess the pre-quarters, as they would say in Ultimate. 2 out of 3 sets. We took one. They took one. Then we took the second. Then we lost the third, 15-13, heartbreak. Yours truly got aced on the last point. I was devastated. I put up my hand, the ball goes through the wickets, and my partner just looks at me, and I'm like, we're out, we flamed out. So that is my day of a lot of sun and a little bit of disappointment. So
Normally when you lose, you're really grumpy, but you seem actually fine right now. Are you okay?
I'm fine. I mean, it's hopefully not my last chance at gold, but it was an opportunity to play with someone that's like consistently finishes in the top 4 at advanced tournaments in round net. So in Ontario, he'll finish like top 8 at least or top 10. And so I was really excited to maybe like podium and then just like flamed out, finished 15th out of 25 advanced teams. And I would say 15 out of 50 because there was 25 intermediate rec teams. So I'll take the solace that I was 15 out of 50. So something to celebrate, I guess. But
for sure.
The other thing too is I'm just pumped up because college football has started, and I know that has nothing to do with Canada, but U.S. college football has started, so that's gotten me like really excited and buzzing. So that's probably part of why I'm not that down. But you, on the other hand, Danie, you had an interesting week. I know we didn't have that many telecommunications on the cellular there because you were busy doing stuff. So why don't you share all the things that you're doing this past week?
Yeah, so with Elevate, we have lots of coaches, and all summer long, they're grinding. They're out in the heat, 6 hours a day, chasing around little kids, making them love Frisbee. It's exhausting. And so we want to give them this nice reward at the end of the summer, and we take them on a couple night retreat. So we went to Agassiz, which you have no idea where that is.
No,
it's a couple hours east of Vancouver. So cute farm town. There's chickens at the place we were staying at. We were staying in this huge farmhouse. It's like a haunted house. It was awesome. We played hide and seek. We played camouflage. It was very cutesy. We went on a cute walk on like the beach river situation. I think it was a lake. Fun times had by all. We played a little bit of what's the net game? It's like volleyball. Anyways, you may have been. It's not volleyball. No, it's like a four net.
Oh,
crap.
cross net?
Crossnet. There it is.
Yo, I've been getting ads for that on my Facebook. Like, they keep getting me ads. I think I watched one Crossnet ad, and now I'm just getting like I'll get one now. Crossnet. I'm going to say it again. Crossnet. And like, it's going to come on my Facebook. But
well, if you do spike ball, it's going to target you.
with volleyball, right?
Yes. So we played some of that. It was really, really fun. And right from that, we went camping with a couple people from our Elevate staff, and that was really nice. And my dog had literally the best time ever. She was roaming free, but she didn't go that far, but she was just chilling in the forest, having the best time ever. Evidently ate something bad. So by the time I'm taking her home, she's kind of having some bathroom issues, like extreme bathroom issues. And then I'm like, okay, well, that's sometimes happens. She's a puppy. And then we're sitting on the couch watching TV. I was getting like eating before having to go to practice, and she gets sick out the front of her face a few times. And so I was like, okay, both ends. It's not good news for a puppy. Like, that's a bad sign that she's eaten something bad or she's sick or something. So called the vet. They're like, you need to take her to the emergency vet right now. So I get all her stuff. We go to the emergency vet. The vet's like, here's your $1,800 bill.
Oh, no.
We need to keep her overnight. She needed to be hooked up to IV for 12 hours. Her little puppy paw had an IV in it. And just like, I need her as much as she needs me. That's a boat, if you can hear that in the background. She's obsessed with me. I'm obsessed with her. It's an unhealthy relationship, and I don't care, and do not judge me. So the fact that I had to leave her for like 12 or 13 hours straight by herself, that's unheard of. So it was really traumatizing for me. I know this sounds like really pathetic, but Ari was also camping out of cell service, so he had no idea any of this was happening. So I was like legit alone with this stuff happening. I just like couldn't take another loss in my life. So I was like very sensitive about it. So she's back at home. She's healthy. She literally jumped into my arms when I saw her. All the vets didn't want to leave her because they said that she was so cute, and they were all like fighting over who got to play with her. So I know she was in good hands, but my hands are where she should be forever. So she's home, and I'm happy. And yes, I made some of my practice that night. So that was good.
Were you able to practice with a clear head though? Because you're
absolutely not. Yeah. Absolutely not. I made my coach.
One of your worst practices, right?
I played fine, but like maybe my coach hold my phone with the volume way up so that the vet called me, and then my mom called me. She's like, "Your mom's calling." It was really, I felt like an adult, you know.
Yeah, I mean, do appreciate you sharing that. I don't have a dog personally, so I don't know what it'd be like. Neither do I have kids, so I mean, it'd probably be if you have kids and a dog in the audience, you know how Danie feels, and hopefully you weren't eating while Danie was explaining that. That's what I was thinking.
I didn't use any words. Like,
that's true. You're using your
I
own
kept it
description.
G-rated.
Yeah. No, that's a good point.
So you're welcome.
I mean, thanks for sharing that. That's our news in terms of what we did on our weekends or week, we should say. And now we actually get to head to the real news, what you're here for. You're here for us talking about our lives partially, I would say, like maybe like a quarter. But mostly you're here for the ultimate news. So let's get to that right now.
We now have breaking news.
Welcome to your news section. So, as per usual, we're going to start with the West and we're going to move East. Last week, it was a heavy Danie news episode. This week, not so much. And I'm not upset about it. So, we're going to start with the West. Traffic confirmed, the only team participating in the USA series. We've also been power ranked at number 6 because there's been some teams, Iris and Sixers, specifically that have dropped out. So Traffic actually moved up in the rankings, and Riot, who's normally 1, 2, 3, dropped below Traffic because quite a few of their top players are playing mixed this season. So it's looking like, well, what Deep Look said on their podcast is that it's going to be between Traffic and Schwa for first place coming out of regional. So I'm very curious to see what playing Riot's going to be like. I'm very curious to see what these other Seattle teams like Seattle Underground, who normally plays really well and has strong games against Traffic. So I have really no idea what to expect. All of these teams have played tournaments besides us. So fingers crossed that the little Canadian team that can make it out of regionals and make it to nationals, because I want to go to San Diego. So that's my Traffic news so far. Now, for mixed, I've heard that Red Flag is going to be trying to organize a scrimmage against some of the World Games applicant pool players, and that's supposed to be happening this next weekend. It has not been confirmed, but if it is, I'm going to hopefully go try to check it out, and I can give a bit of a recap on what happened there. Also, this upcoming weekend is the U20 Prospect Camp in Vancouver. There's 80 athletes registered so far, by far, like more than any other one. I'm pushing it hard to all the juniors. I know Alex Lamb, the head coach of the Open team, is pushing it hard. More girls than boys have signed up too, so I'm really proud of that. So, and I think the same thing happened in Winnipeg too. There's a lot more girls. So across Canada, coaches of the women's teams are crushing it, getting lots of girls out playing, keeping them engaged during COVID. Shout out to all of you. My last thing from the West is that a little birdie told me, not confirmed, you cannot sue me and be upset with me if I have this incorrect, but a little birdie told me that either UBC as an institution or the UBC men's team as a team have decided not to play in the USA series this fall. So the US was going to be doing a fall nationals and then their normal spring nationals to make up for the fact that they missed them the year before. So it was a bit weird, also probably a bit expensive. You need all these COVID tests and border restrictions with the university. There's so many barriers. It doesn't surprise me if UBC was the one to make this decision. Have not heard anything about the women's team, but if it is UBC's decision, it will affect both teams. So if that is the case, UBC will not be playing any games in the US this fall, and they'll be likely just focusing on spring. So that's my update. Short, sweet, delicious even. Theo, what's happening in the East?
East Coast, Best Coast, that's what they say. But
no one says that.
But a question for you there. Do you know if UVic, what's UVic is doing yet? Or maybe you'll get some intel for next time.
I think it would be the same as UBC.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So for the East news, I'm dipping into the group chat. So if you put news in the group chat, we're going to talk about it. So Mephisto, the Montreal team, is not doing the series, as Danny mentioned. Traffic, the only team that we know of. Maybe some team sneaks in and does it, but not that we know of. They want to personally give a shout out for Ultimate Canada, giving them a reason to keep training. Because obviously, fall series for a lot of these teams was something they're looking forward to. So being able to play UCI is pretty sweet for them. And the Hamilton team, I know they signed up late. Because I saw the form go out, I think the day that applications were due, if I'm not mistaken. So the Hamilton mixed team Crux, they got a team together, ready to go for UCI, ramping up. But they were kind of a last minute sign up and got in. So congrats to them. Fox, which is the women's team, we highlighted them on our first East episode update. They will not be attending UCI as you take a look at the list. And that was something we had talked about before, Danny, how a lot of women's teams were kind of, you said Riot was decimated and lost a lot of players. I feel like with no Toxics and Knox, which are teams out of Toronto, and then Fox out of Durham, it's just preventing, I don't know what you think about this, but it's just preventing a lot of opportunities for women to play at this level because these teams aren't happening. So that's kind of unfortunate to see. And I'm not sure what that's been like in BC or other places, but that's sort of the vibe in Ontario. So what kind of have you seen out there? Do you know? We talked about how women are potentially less, not to generalize, but maybe more conscious of the choices they make in terms of safety. We're seeing a lot of open teams, especially in the US, just play, and a lot of tournaments being open heavy. So I'm not sure we've talked about this before, but it definitely hit home when I saw that another team is not going, right? So
there's less women's teams happening in Vancouver. If you were watching the video version, I pulled a Jeremy Hill, as we like to call it at Elevate, where I was muted. So yeah, there's only the Traffic and then Koish. So normally in Vancouver, there's 3 full women's teams that compete at multiple tournaments. So we're definitely seeing a downturn in participation in women. And I don't believe that there's a women's masters team that's practicing here either. So yeah, it is unfortunate, but in a year like this year, people are just choosing to take a year off. Maybe they're hiking, camping, and I think that that's great too. So we would love to see them back, but I also totally get it. So yeah.
Yeah, we'll see what happens there. And speaking of another women's team there, we'll talk about Stella quickly. They've had some small injuries, they're saying, and they're trying to get scrims in. I know they had a practice weekend with Iris that I saw on Instagram there, maybe working against some master teams because there's a bunch of them in Ottawa, which is cool because it's right there. But I'm sure, I know Stella sent us this update, but Danie, I am more than confident that a lot of teams are dealing with this. Like, just even commentating the Rush game last weekend, saw like 3 players go down like in a game. I just can't imagine what teams are experiencing all over the country in terms of practice. Like, if you're ramping up too fast, we had Mike Haddock on talking about this. If you're ramping up too fast or not taking care of your body properly, it's just going to be kind of disastrous for you or some of your teammates, I would say. So we'll see what happens with that. But a couple other updates. Mini tournaments happening. We talked about the mini kind of mixed tournament, right, last week. So Hound, the Durham team's having a mini tournament in Kingston this coming weekend with Grand Trunk, Shrike, who got in out of Ottawa to UCI, and Queen's University. So that's kind of cool. And they'll be scrimmaging Tombstone, which is basically a lot of the players that will make up Team Canada Grandmasters Open. So that'll be really cool for them. And then Boat, Roy, I'm just looking at the list here. Boat, Roy, and Maverick teams that did not get into UCI, they'll be playing a mini tournament on September 19th with Brock Ultimate. So kind of a round robin. So cool to see these teams trying to figure out ways to get some playing opportunities. I'm not sure what the sunlight is over there in BC, but right now I remember practicing on Thursday and the sun was down at like 8, like Eastern. And I was like, this is devastating. Like, it's terrible. Like, it just goes down so fast. Like, are you able to practice late into the night in BC, or maybe you have practice fields with lights, or like, what's the situation out in Vancouver?
Yeah, throughout the summer, we practice 6:30 to 8:30 or 9 because it's light out. And then as soon as fall hits, so September, we're on turf from 8 to 10.
Oh, living the dream. I just feel like maybe some teams are accessing those fields and some aren't. Like, I know some teams are going to try to do some practice weekends to figure things out because if you're prepping for UCI and you practice at 6:30 or 6:45 and people are coming out of work, like rush hour Toronto, and you practice till 8, like, how many warm-up drills and like warm-up can you run before you scrimmage? Like, there's just like not that much time. So the weekend practices are the way to go. Normally these teams aren't practicing this late. Like, CUC would have happened, seasons would have been over. So this will be an interesting year. But something that I know is near and dear to your heart is juniors. You know, Danie loves to talk about it. So throw us a juniors update here from Ontario. I know you didn't see this tournament personally, but you can still update us.
Juniors are the future. We got to throw some love to juniors. They podcast you, right? They totally listen to this. I shouted out Valkyrie team, which is a Surrey team from BC, in our last podcast. And I saw them screen capture it and post it on Instagram. So the youth are listening. So shout out to the youth. So there was a juniors tournament that happened on the 21st, and Ignite out of Ottawa, the A team, lost a heartbreaking universe point in the bronze medal game. Titan boys won in the final, and Wicked West went 4-0. So Wicked West is in the women's division. A lot of those players, we had 3 players on the last U20 Team Canada were from Wicked West. So Ottawa is just a blossoming, booming junior scene. So it is awesome to see these stats coming in.
Yeah, we had confirmation through an email, through a little birdie, as they say, confirming, because I think we talked about this result maybe already, but we'll say it again. Give some love over to Ottawa. But confirm that team name is from the musical, because I remember I was like speculating, like, what is it about? So the origin has been figured out. It is from the musical that I've never seen personally.
Neither.
There you go. I mean, maybe it's a requirement because I know on Maverick, a lot of people watch Top Gun because that's where it's from. So I feel like it should be a requirement if your team is named after some pop culture icon that you have to watch the movie or like musical, whatever it is, you have to watch it.
I watch Traffic every day. I'm sitting in traffic.
Oh my God.
I'm watching it every day. So I'm very invested in the team. Sorry.
I legitimately thought you were talking about a movie for a second, then I realized you were just doing this really bad like pun, which is fine. That should have gone in our Father's Day joke off that we did a long, long time ago.
That I won.
Yeah, that you clearly won. So we're going to talk uni series today, just in the news, but also with Julia Peden, who's going to be our guest, talking about AUDL, but also her experience coaching university. We're going to have some more uni content coming at you. One thing I want to note for sure, Danie, is that there's an Eastern Ontario tournament on the same day as a tournament in Hamilton. So obviously Ontario is very big, but just the fact that there are 2 tournaments happening where teams can kind of pick and choose. So probably the Ottawa teams will pick and choose this Eastern Ontario tournament, whereas a lot of teams kind of like in Southwestern Ontario will pick this like Hamilton tournament. It's kind of interesting. And obviously we've talked about this before, but Eastern's being the same weekend as UCI. I'm just really interested to see which university team takes the cake and wins that tournament, because all the other university teams with top club players will not be there. So whichever university has like players that are like good, but not like at like the club level good that made UCI, like they're gonna win. And like, will that skew the results for Uni Nats, where like one team gets in and like they get destroyed because like all the other teams have their club players back? I don't know. That's just speculation. But that's kind of interesting. And that's kind of more the East Coast, because I know Manitoba will come too. They've done it before. They won in 2019, so they'll do it. But this is where we announce. By the time this airs, the invites would have gone out. But group chats are coming for the university. Are you ready to handle this, Daniel? I know you can handle the Western group chats, but we're going to get some...
UBC and UVic only?
Oh, what about Manitoba? And like,
I guess the University of Manitoba.
Like Regina, Saskatchewan, Winnipeg. You got some places out there that you can manage. You know, maybe you just throw
Do
it
they
into
have
one.
college teams?
I've seen Regina CUC before. They were there watching the
group
final.
chats for CUC. I thought you said for college.
Yeah, no, CUUC, like college group chats in the West. Well, East, there's a lot of teams. So we're going to make
I know.
Like East open chat, throw the Quebec teams in there as well. And I know Memorial sometimes comes out and like the really East Coast university teams, and then we'll do like a women's one as well. So we'll send those invites out. If you don't get invited, you can blame me, and you can message us, and we'll put you in it. Just help us with like rosters and other things like that. Just some more updates. It helps us be informed. We're excited for tryouts happening, at least in Ontario. I've seen teams been posting. Julia's going to talk about that as well. So tryouts are happening for university, and you talked about the youth. University is also the future, because a lot of these university players are going to filter into their local club programs, even if they don't actually live there. Maverick, for example, was a beneficiary of University of Waterloo being there in Laurier. Some players would be staying there for co-op in the summer, and then they play for us. So I'm not sure if that's as big of a thing out in the West Coast, but I know here in Ontario, teams will play, for example, Local 613, a mixed team out of Kingston, but they don't actually live there. They just go to Queens. So that's something to focus on. Uni series. Let's go.
I do have a quick trivia nugget for you there, Theo.
Ooh, I like it.
The last time University CUUCs was in the West, guess what team won? For women.
I know what year this is. This is the year, because nationals happened, fake nationals happened in Hamilton because all the East teams didn't want to go. So this was 2013. Is that right? Am I right on that trivia?
Yeah, I think 2013 makes sense.
And I'm going to guess that UBC won. No, UVic.
If you're not watching the stream, you can't see me stroking my beard. But yes, UVic women took down UBC in the final. It was the only time we ever beat UBC, besides one Douglas Bowl, was we beat them twice in that tournament. And we won
Were you
gold.
on that team?
Yeah, heck yes.
Who else was on that team? Give some shout-outs. I want to know who the
Ali
stars are on
Short,
that
Jessie
squad.
Bell, Kate Scarth. We had Nicola Parker. It's just like a really, like all traffic-y type Team Canada players.
Dang.
Yeah.
And who did UBC have? Do you remember?
That was like the Chewy Arena era.
Dang. Is that on film?
I mean, oh gosh, I think Ultimate Canada might have it. It's not like, it's rainy. Ooh. It's gross. I don't think it's very exciting. We were all like new at Ultimate. I don't know.
Who won the Open? Do you remember?
I think Manitoba? I could be wrong. I don't remember. UVic wasn't in the final. I don't think. I think it was UBC and someone. So,
well, let me ask you this. I know, news going a little long today, but let me ask you this question. Have the BC teams ever considered coming down to the East Coast to attend a Uni Nats, or like they're just like, no way, bro? Like they're just like, no dice. Like it's not worth it kind of thing.
Not in my experience, never that I've heard either, because we have such great access to quality competition in Washington, Oregon, California. There's so many teams that are such high level that it doesn't make sense for us to do anything other than that. Like we could just drive over the border and there's like a plethora of Washington universities and colleges. So it's I felt very privileged to have gone to UVic for that reason.
Yeah, I'm just jealous, like, knowing that you can play more or less year round, like, especially in the college scene.
Yeah.
Like, because I follow the college scene quite closely, especially in, like, the U.S. college scene, and obviously UBC and UVic are part of that, but just seeing how teams can play, like, fall tournaments, at least on the East Coast, or Southern Coast, I should say, like Misery Loves Company and, like, CCC, Classic City Classic, which is a great filming place that Ultiworld does. Just the way it's set up is just really great to see, like, how cuts develop and throws. But those things are in the fall, and then you see a team develop all the way. Like, they take December break off, and then they go to, there's a Florida warm-up, and there's Easterns and Stanford Invite, and all these big tournaments, Northwest Challenge. And it's like, we don't have that on the East Coast for unis. Just jealous.
Yeah. The Northwest Challenge was born out of my era because we had, I think, 6 teams make it to nationals that year out of the Northwest. We had 6 bids. That's crazy. Called it the Evil Empire. It was the first Evil Empire from Multiworld.
Wait, trivia. Can I try to answer which teams were there? Is it women's?
Yeah. I don't remember anything on the men's side, unfortunately.
Okay, that's fine. So it's going to be Oregon.
Okay.
Fugue, Washington Element.
Yep.
UBC.
Mm-hmm.
UVic.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, this is where it's trouble. Western Washington.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, no way. Oh, gosh. Who else is in the West Coast?
Starts with a dub. Yeah, amazing.
Let's go. Come on. For those watching the stream, I was staring into the camera the whole time. I did not look this up. Let's go. That's some college knowledge right there.
College knowledge. We love to hear it on the podcast. And
oh, man, I'm fired up after that.
You got to calm down. Theo's going to take some breaths. We are going to go hear from our sponsor. It's Be Ultimate. We love Be Ultimate. I'm repping Be Ultimate right now. These sun hoodies are fly. Got to check them out on the Be store. But we're going to hear from our sponsor, Be Ultimate, right now.
This episode is brought to you by Be Ultimate Apparel. Based out of Vancouver, BC, Be Ultimate is climate neutral certified and designs products that are built to perform. I personally love my 2 sun hoodies from them, and I rock them wherever I go. If you want to learn more about Be Ultimate, or if you're a club team captain and want to take advantage of their no strings attached offer for a free jersey, head over to beultimate.ca or visit the link in the show description.
This is Jordan Marin from the Toronto Sixers, and you're listening to the Huckin podcast, your coast-to-coast guide for all things Canadian Ultimate.
We're back. Main event. We're previewing the Canada Cup with I should say now, dear friend of mine, co-commentator, what else? Confidant, I don't know, I could list like all these words.
Emotional
but Julia Peden in the house. Yeah, all that stuff. So she has commentated a bunch of the AUDL this season for the Canada Cup with yours truly. So I thought, why not bring Julia in? I don't think the teams want to give away their secrets, so I didn't want to ask anyone from the teams to give away their secrets before the final. So Julia is in to give us some info. So Julia, how are you doing today? Coming all the way from London, Ontario on the podcast.
Doing well, thanks, Theo. I'm just coming off of a long weekend family wedding, so my throat is a little bit more rough than I would say than usual. So if I'm sounding a little sickly, that might be it. A couple late nights, but I had a great weekend and feeling good. I was watching the Outlaws and Rush game at the rehearsal dinner. I had my phone like down and I was watching it, and it was very funny. I don't think anyone actually noticed, but I don't know. The bride didn't notice. That's the most important part.
I love the commitment.
Yeah.
Love that commitment. So Julia, for the audience out there, if you could summarize the Canada Cup season, that would be really great so that you can catch everybody up. If people missed stuff along the way, just like catch us up to this moment that we sit in and live in right now.
Sure. So in kind of Cole's notes, the Ottawa Outlaws came out like smashing out of the gates. They went 2-0 in the first weekend, which was very surprising. They came into the season with 11 rookies. Huge turnover. You don't really expect that, but they had so much energy. They came out of the gate hot. So they went 2-0, and then they have kind of fizzled out since then. I think their initial energy and the kind of experience of the other two teams surpassed the speed of the young guys on the Outlaws. So while the Royal, I'll go to the Royal next, they lost their first game to the Outlaws, obviously. And then since then, have been very, very steady. They've been working with a very dynamic O-line. They have quite a few players who are handler, cutters, hybrids, everything, and they can swap in and out really, really well, as well as applying really good pressure downfield. Really good pressure on the defense. So the Royale have definitely been kind of the upper hand. I think they're going in 6-2 to this final game, the championship game, which is very impressive. And I think because they had such a good early start to the season, they've been able to just work on their system in the past couple games and just really develop that confidence and communication and all those good things. Then the Rush, coming historically the Beast of the East, they've had a very difficult start this season. I believe they went 0-3, I think, until they finally got their first win. Don't quote me on that. They had a bit of a slower start, but they had a lot of moving parts. They had some older players who were kind of like sometimes there, sometimes not, which makes it really hard for a system to have those newer players step into those roles, but then sometimes maybe be subbed out. It's really difficult to have an O-line that's really strong and consistent. So there's a couple of players on that, Isaiah Masekele, Thompson McKnight, players like that to kind of come and go. But I would say that they've built the confidence in the past couple of weeks, and they're now doing really well. And I actually think that the Rush are really they're on an upward trajectory right now. I can see the confidence in a lot of their players, and we'll get into that in a bit. But that's kind of the story so far. There was a really big game last 2 nights ago. What day are we at?
Well, by the time this records or airs, it'll be a few more days. So
yeah, thanks. So a couple days ago, a really big game. It was basically the semifinals game to go against the Outlaws and the Rush, and that was a very high action-packed game. Even though the score for a while seemed like it was pretty confidently in the Rush side, the Outlaws, as always, came out with high energy, and it was a really, really good game. So that's kind of been, I think, the story so far. Am I missing anything big, Theo?
No, I think you got all the main info there of who came out hot and Montreal being steady there. And Julia, I know you're out family wedding. I do appreciate you just even messaging me, giving me some pep talk for the big broadcast. So I do appreciate that. And there was a lot of fans at our TD Place, and I hope to one day commentate there again. We were in like the actual commentating room that like games happen from, and so we saw where like the GM of the team would go and like other AV equipment and just everything. It was just really cool. It's a professional stadium. It's where the Ottawa Red Blacks of the CFL play and Atletico Ottawa, the pro soccer team there. So it was really, really cool. And Julia, you were missed, but we had some players fill in on the broadcast, try to fill in your shoes. And that was that. Yeah. So big game. And now we're going to talk kind of still a little bit about the season here. For those who might not know, or maybe they do and they just want to hear your opinions, who have been kind of the breakout stars, and I'll say 2 kind of questions, breakout stars and then unsung heroes of each team. Like maybe they're not on the stat sheet as much, so you're not going to see 20 assists or whatever, but they've been a key part of that team. So I'll let you pick which team you want to start with.
Okay, I'll start with the Royale. I would say the star player, the breakout player for sure would have to be Brissett. His ability to run that O-line as a second-year player, a 21-year-old coming onto the team, incredible ability to move the disc consistently. And I would say that he's one of the stay-at-home handles on that O-line, but he can still, if he needs to go upfield. I think he's put over 2,500 throwing yards, roughly, over the past 8 games, which is really incredible. And then an unsung hero that I would like to highlight is actually Vincent Lemieux. So he's kind of like the right hand to Brissett, where Brissett has put up ridiculous numbers in regards to, I think he's actually led every single game versus the Rush this season. He's put up the highest amount of assists, so he's been the assist lead in all 4 games. So I think that's going to be kind of a bit of key of the game. My brain's starting to cycle of what the Thursday game looks like, and that would be my guess. But going back to the unsung hero, I would say Vincent Lemieux has done really well in just being consistent in moving the disc. He actually has more yardage than Brissett, but he hasn't been putting up necessarily the assists specifically or making as flashy of plays. But his ability to just keep it going, keep that system flowing is really impressive. So I would say he's kind of the unsung hero in my mind. But again, I'm also a handler, so I always look to those kinds of handlers who maybe don't get the recognition because they're not slinging discs or any of that crazy stuff, but I would say he's keeping the system moving. And then...
All right, so that's Montreal. Yeah, who else you got now? Now you got to go to Ontario, so you can pick your first Ontario team you want to highlight.
Oh, I'm doing the Outlaws too. Okay, I did not prepare for this. Okay, I'm gonna go to the Rush. I'll go breakout or what was it? Breakout player.
Breakout and unsung hero.
Okay.
So
breakout player has to be Phil Turner. There's no doubt about that. He has been incredible all over the field defensively. And he's also throwing his body, I think, a lot more this year than he has been historically. So he's really, really making a statement there. And I'm really excited to see what he does. He's been throwing his pulls too, I think, need to be highlighted because he's stepped up when Jarrett Marin has been injured for the past few games. And I think that's a big thing that people don't always think about is like how important a pull is and how important that hovering pull or specific strategies to different things, how important that can be for a team and a defensive line. So yeah, I can praise Phil Turner all day. He's a good friend. Got to play with him at Western, and I still get to play with him in like the indoor series. So love him as a human, but also great. It's been really cool to see him rise to the occasion this season. Unsung hero. I would actually, similar to Vincent Lemieux, I want to kind of highlight Luke Comure. I think he's done really well at stepping into the role of this O-line and, again, just moving the disc. There's some really big characters on the Toronto Rush. Andrew Carroll and Cameron Harris, you really see are thrown to each other a lot and doing these kinds of things. But what you don't see is the person who's always getting the collect and always centering it or always moving the disc back to them to get it. And that is Luke Comure, and I think he's done really well in that. I think he had a bit of a struggle at the beginning of the season and just getting his confidence, and I think he's really stepped up. He's proven that he can sling it when he needs to, but he can also just move the disc really well and also score. He kind of can do it all, and I think he's a quieter player that teams need to look out for a little bit more. And then the Outlaws. I hadn't even thought about this. I hate to say, ever since I lost, I was just like, well, all the stats that I knew about the Outlaws like went out of my brain. I'm going to pull up their roster really quick just to kind of get the names really quick. Unsung or breakout player, I think Polaz has done really well in the handler spot. He stepped onto this team as a rookie this year, and I think his abilities, again, I guess I'm just highlighting all handlers, sorry guys, but his ability to just move the disc really well, and he looks really confident on this team, and I'm really liking to see what he's been doing. He's kind of more like no, he's not. I don't know, unsung hero, maybe like Reese Toogood. I think he's also done fairly well. He's consistent, he's smart, he's got really nice break throws. Trying to think who else might be a unsung hero, because you know the Choliches, kind of like the whole O line, right? At least the names and like the captains. But yeah, I would say Reese Toogood has come onto this team also really well. So I think those would be my two. I could probably look at the list even more, but those are gonna be my first thoughts.
Thank you for doing that. I know it's hard to think about unsung heroes because oftentimes they are overlooked. They're not necessarily all over the stat sheets. So it is nice to kind of give love to people that are maybe working hard and moving the disc. And sometimes handlers don't get the same amount of love as our deep strikers who make like the fancy skies and layouts in the end zone. So as a handler, I love to hear it. Big fan. Shout out to handlers who move the disc well. Now, we're going to settle back in just to the two teams that are heading into the finals. And we'd like to hear from you a preview for both of those teams. And if you were coaching those teams or if you were on those teams deciding the strategy, what do you think you would do to make both of them succeed?
Good question. I think the Royal have been able to build and establish their system throughout the entire season with confidence and their goal is also not just the AUDL season right now, but it's building a system and building a long-term program. So they're actually, the coach Hayduk has come in, and Izilime has also come in and really set the standard of fall season as well, being really important for them. And I think that longevity is really smart in the strategy that they've implemented so far. So with that all in mind, they're not only building for this championship game, but they're also building for longer, which means that all of their practices, I'm sure, have been targeted at just growth and communication and that kind of like on-field chemistry. And it's really paid off. I think they have an incredible pool of athletes on this team. I think their raw athleticism is really, really impressive. And I think they've literally made both teams run for their money quite a few times. If I were the coach, I would say just keep sticking to our system, keep doing what we do best, and apply our energy, our high energy. It's going to be in Montreal. Montreal does so well. The Royals do so well in their own home field when they have their crazy fans in the stands. So I'm excited to see what that looks like, whether I'll be there or just watching from afar. It should be really cool to see. I think that the Royal have built themselves up for success, and I'd be very curious to see if they go down early to the rush, what that could do to them mentally. Now, I do know that out of the three teams, they have more of an actual mental strategy, I should say. They've actually implemented different drills and practices to encourage some form of mental resiliency compared to the other teams that hasn't been as much of a team discussed strategy that's been implemented, I guess. So I'd be curious to see when they need to use that, because realistically they've done fairly well in all their games. They went down like 1 or 2 points against the Rush in their first showing, I believe, and then came back. And their last game, they absolutely destroyed them. I don't think that's a fair assessment of the Royal. These R's are confusing me. The Rush's abilities in their later season. So I think that last showing, I think some people would look at that last game and say, oh, well, the Rush lost by like 11 points or something like that. Theo, do you know off the top of your head how much they lost by? It's like 13 or something.
I do not remember, but it was unfortunately not a very close game.
Yeah. And
Toronto had gone down with a lot of injuries, so that's a part of it. So if I was Montreal, I would not really like look at that. I would look at the tape, but I would not go into this game on Thursday thinking like, oh, this is the Rush we're going to see, because that is definitely not the case, and it would be a very big mistake if they did that.
Yeah, and I think what's important to note is that even though the Rush have lost to the Royal every game, it's been within 1 or 2 points every game except for their last game, which they won. Looking at the score now, that was actually 25-18 for the Royal. So again, not an accurate depiction of the Rush's ability against the Royal. So, and then going into the Rush, I think what they've done really well is Coach Yearwood has put people in positions later in this season that have allowed people to rise to the occasion and be comfortable in what they're doing. So I think players like Jason Huckin going back onto the D-line, he's done really well there. That's definitely one of his strengths. And then putting Nate Hurst back into kind of like a hybrid position where he can start as a cutter and then kind of come back and handle when he needs to. I think he's shown a lot more confidence there. So I think putting people in positions to do well is going to be the key for the Rush going into this game. That also means really good matchups and very particular matchups to make sure that you can exploit certain players and have those, fast on fast or fast on smart or whatever you need to do with those matchups to shut them down. So I think that's going to be their key to the game.
Nice. Thank you for that.
Yeah, so Julia, I know I personally am not going to make a pick just because since I've commentated, I just feel like it I don't know. For me, I can't make a pick in good conscience. I know a college football commentator, Kirk Herbstreit, who I respect heavily. He's a color guy. Whenever there's a game that he's going to commentate, he actually doesn't pick the game, and that's like kind of what he does. So yeah, I'm not. I'm going to choose not to pick this final. I don't know if you want to, Julia. Maybe Danny is going to just throw a shot in the dark and make a pick
Montreal.
here, but we'll see. There you go. Danny just picks Montreal on a whim. Do you have a score there, Danny, that you're going to pick?
What are the games to? It's a time. Got it. Big fan. It'll be 21-18.
All right, there you go. You heard it here first. Danny's pick, 21-18. Let's go. Julia, anything else to add here about the Canada Cup? Obviously, you've been doing most of the games this season you've seen all the teams, but commentating out of Ottawa and Toronto. So anything else you want to add in terms of players or things you've seen and kind of what you're excited for in years to come?
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting season coming off of a year and a long time of coming off of not playing. And I think it's been a really interesting season to see how people have been able to build a system, build a team, and kind of run back into it really quickly without really knowing too early what it was going to look like. It was very last minute, kind of, this is what it is, and here are when the games are, and also changing on the fly quite a bit. So I think the teams have done really well, and coaching staff and leadership, especially for the Outlaws who do not have official coaches, kudos to the leadership and their ability to keep a level head. Honestly, I'm really impressed with their ability this season to show up and compete every single day with the best that they personally can as a captain coach, as well as have a system and develop the new rookies that they have. For this game, I say, sure, they're 0-4, but don't count the Rush out. The Rush have historically always been able to rise to an occasion, and they show up when they need to. And I think that some really key players, Mike McKenzie, Phil Turner, and even people like thinking handler defenders, Jason Lamb has been doing really well. There's I could go on and really highlight individual players, but I don't know if we have all the time in the world. I love both teams. I obviously am closer to a lot of the Rush players, but I've really enjoyed watching the Royal team and getting to know the players more. And I think this is going to be a really good game. Even if it goes down, I would say don't count either of the teams out because they will grind it out to the very last second. I think that's really fun. That's always the fun part of sports, right? It's kind of the fun part of AUDL because there's a timer. There's different strategy that gets implemented than regular club season. So you always get that kind of buzzer beater excitement of every end of each quarter and all that fun stuff. So I don't know. I just say I'm really excited for this game, wherever I might be. Yeah, I'm really excited. It's going to be some big plays.
Yeah, speaking of buzzer beaters there, I know second quarter of that Toronto-Ottawa game, there was a huge one that I think really changed the complexion of that game. It could have been 12-10 Ottawa heading into half, but instead it was 13-9 Toronto. Or it could have been 12-10 Toronto, but instead it was 13-9, so that's a big difference, and I think it sucked a lot of momentum out of Ottawa. So definitely want to shout out Ottawa for a great season. I know you started hot, and even I on the podcast admitted I was wrong in the rankings, and the team just showed a lot of fight throughout the year. Really excited I'm hoping a lot of their young homegrown talent give a quick name drop here to like players like Alex Cameron, Thomas Stanton, Ian Wallace, those three in particular, who are from the Ottawa area, who've played with Ignite, their juniors program. If some of those players stick around, it's going to be very interesting to see what their Ottawa team's going to look like, both in the AUDL and in club with Phoenix. So that's my future shout out there. Or look into the future, I should say.
Well, looking into the future, I know we've asked Julia a little bit about what you do if you were a coach, but you actually are a coach. So we're going to take a little bit of a break here, and we're going to hang out with you a little bit longer because we do have some questions for you about university coaching and everything. So if you just stick around a little bit, we'll have Julia in the other segment. All right, welcome back, everybody. We are now going to transition to talking about college because it's starting up, and we're so lucky to have Julia on the podcast because not only is she all about the AUDL, she's all about College Ultimate too, so it's perfect. So Julia, quick question for you to start it off. What has coaching at the university level been like for you?
It is very interesting, to say the least. I, for one, coach the men's team, so there's a lot of there's a big difference in regards to preparation and time management between the women's teams that I've usually played with and captained and all that good stuff compared to the men's, and especially at university level, because there's so many moving parts. Maybe you're coming into university for the first time ever and you're like, oh, maybe I'll play a sport. So there's a lot of like, I'm literally receiving emails up to today, and our first tryout is tomorrow. Also being at Western University, we are a varsity program, and we have a lot of paperwork, administrative things that need to get done before someone can even hit the field. So I'm in a very difficult scenario because I kind of have to make the decision at a certain point of like, how long do we run tryouts for? Because every single day that I have another tryout is a day missed of practice, right? Because you can kind of do like a half practice tryout type of thing, but it's difficult. You're losing time. We have 6 weeks in the university series historically, and it's a very short season. We practice 3 times a week, and you're in it. Like the second that O week starts or orientation week starts, there's tryouts that same week. So it's very difficult that way. We have a very short season, but it's been interesting, and I love it. I absolutely love my coaching role at Western. I love coaching men's. Obviously I make jokes, but that's just because I receive thousands of emails all the time for very small things, very big things, all the good stuff. But it's a very interesting, unique experience compared to like summer club, which I've done leadership and captaining for. But yeah, it's been good. I think I also struggle a little bit. If people don't know who I am as a player, they sometimes struggle to know what my capabilities are as a female coach for a men's team. But I think the second that they see me throw 1 or 2 discs, they're like, oh, okay, she knows the sport. She's like okay at the sport, you know? Well, sometimes if they don't get to see that, I think people just like to assume that you're not as experienced as you might be. So that's always an interesting balance.
You're speaking to my very lived experience here. So coaching a lot of boys in our programs, coaching mixed teams and stuff like that, or even playing mixed, like I always feel like I have to, do the same thing, like throw. And this is like a sort of a, I don't want to say shout out because that's the wrong word, but one time I was coaching in a camp with Hayduk, and I said that this experience where sometimes I have to earn the respect by showing them that I can throw really far or whatever. And he's like, you shouldn't have to do that. You should just be able to like have a strong coaching presence without, I'm like, agreed, 6'3" giant man. Hayduk, this is for you.
With piercing eyes that could like cut glass, probably.
Imagine.
Yeah, he's got a very, very intense look to him. Absolutely. And I'd like to think that I'm also very like, I like to have fun, and I would like to think that I try to coach with like a lot of empathy, a lot of emotion, all that kind of stuff. And I think sometimes I have to kind of, especially at the first tryout, I have to be like, all right, hi, I'm the head coach. Here's what I do. Here's why I should be here. And like kind of set the standard as like a strong leader. And then once the team kind of gets made, I'm like, all right, guys, what are we doing? And like, I can then get into a little bit more fun, and almost like show not my personality, but just show almost like the weaker side. Right. It's definitely a balance, but I think with more women in these positions, it's just going to make it more of, I feel like less people ask me now, oh, why do you coach the men's team? It's not the women's team. Well, when I first got into the role, maybe 3 years ago, people asked all the time, oh, why is she coaching the women's team? So I feel like the more that it's common for women to coach men's teams, the less likely people are going to wonder or question. And then I don't have to feel like I have to provide my resume as to why I should be here. You should just know that I should be here. So
yeah. Before Theo asks the next question, I do want to let the record show I love you, Hayduk. You're the best. We're friends. So that comes from love. Okay, go ahead, Theo.
Hayduk with love right there. Julia, first of all, thank you for sharing your experience. And just like I've heard these stories, on our car trips and things. So I do appreciate you sharing that. Now to the larger Huckin A audience. Love that. But in terms of administration, you were talking about it earlier, answering emails. And so I don't envy what you had to do during the COVID 2020 season and trying to deal with all that. So what was your experience coaching during the pandemic? I guess we're still in it, but the fall 2020 season, you weren't able to practice, I don't think. So what were you trying to do to keep some of the players engaged and motivated and also stay within the program?
Oh, man, I can't even, not gonna lie, I feel like I blocked out that entire part of my memory. I feel like we did a lot of different things at different times, and it was a constant moving vehicle. I don't even know. It was constantly moving from plan to plan. We did virtual things for a while. We did workshops. We had, so let's just start at the beginning at tryouts. We were going to host our typical tryouts up until we were going to do it with like segmented groups or something like that. And literally the morning of, I received an email saying no in-person sports allowed. So I had to email everyone right then and there to say, sorry, not eligible to have these tryouts. Keep you updated on what's happening. Within a couple of days, we decided we're going to do like an online kind of interview style tryout. Again, being at Western, we have a lot of regulations that we have to follow, one of which being that I had to roster however many players, 25 or whatever, and I had to have a team solidified. And so they could never even play or touch a disc, but I had to roster people. So I luckily had the email and the communications from everyone who wanted to try out, and anyone who I didn't know their skills or their abilities, new players, we did like a little interview style of, tell me about yourself. How do you play your sport, blah, blah, or sorry, what's your experience, all that kind of good stuff. So that was like on the fly, making decisions. And then we kind of got approved at one point to do in person with masks on. So we had a couple practices a week. Nope, one practice. No, I actually can't even remember how often we practiced for a little bit of time. Then that got stopped, and then back to the virtual things. And then a couple months later, we were allowed back outside. So we were practicing like in the winter at one point, tossing with like freezing cold hands. It went back and forth so many times, and honestly, it was exhausting at one point. I remember just thinking like, I don't even know what we're doing anymore, but people got touches, people got used to the system, and honestly, I received probably the best email ever at the end of the season from someone saying, hey, I know this must have been really hard for you guys, but thank you for like everything that you did. I met some really good friends on the team this year. I now have like roommates for the next year. And I was just like, this is why we do what we do. Like, I don't think a lot of people recognize I'm a volunteer coach for the Mustangs Ultimate Team, Western team, and I have a 9-to-5 job. I have a part-time job at the weekend job at the AUDL. Like, there's a lot of moving parts, and I think a lot of people don't recognize the amount of administrative work that goes into coaching and organizing, and it's constant communications and all this fun stuff. So, but yeah, that's kind of what we did during COVID, and we are back to tryouts hopefully tomorrow, unless we get last minute changes, but that's where we're at right now. And we're planning to have a season, and if we don't, then we'll figure it out from there. We just always roll with the punches. I have not a lot more help, but I have a more solidified leadership unit this year as well, which helps me kind of hand off tasks and all that good stuff. So COVID was a time, but I think we encouraged everyone to just toss what you can. A lot of people live in homes with teammates, which is really great. So we could see a lot of people just tossing in their Snapchat stories or whatever. So
this is a good note for everybody. Go thank a volunteer that it actually feels better than a paycheck sometimes, because people don't recognize how much work it is coaching. Like, you think it's just all the on-field stuff. There's so much more happening behind the scenes. I can't even imagine the administration work that goes into specifically your school's coaching, but also just a men's college team. Anyways, your season in the East is just so different from my college experience in the West, where we play for like 8 months. It seems bizarre to me that you prep for like 6 weeks and then you have a tournament and then it's over. Like, we start in September, we end in May. Like, it's very different. So How can you tell me how you and how your team prepares for Nats?
Good question. So a part of those 6 weeks are the tryouts too. Keep that in mind.
That's
so
insane.
So you got tryouts, and you try to get kind of like your O system in place, a bit of an idea of what your focus is on D. Just kind of outline that really clearly. You go through the drills during tryouts, and then we're right into practices. Once we make the cuts and we have our finalized team, I'll usually meet with my leadership to kind of be like, what are the goals for the season and how do we get to those goals? So I've done like literally a calendar. I'm like, here are our remaining practices. This is going to be this focus and this focus. And then we have one tournament. This season, we only have 2 tournaments instead of 3. So usually it's a really, really jam-packed season because there's 3 tournaments within 6 weeks, usually back-to-back. It's wild. But this season we only have 2. So usually after each tournament, we'll kind of have a discussion or refocus what were our main weaknesses, what was going well, all that good stuff. And then, you just kind of go with it. Halfway through the season, I try to do player feedback. Here's what we want you to focus on for the remaining part of the season. And then people have an idea of kind of what their roles are and all that good stuff. But it is very quick. And as long as everyone's on the same page that we're all just kind of like running around with our heads cut off, I do my best to do a lot of prep beforehand. And again, now that I have a lot of help on leadership, we've had a lot of time to kind of figure out what we want to do and think about different strategies. But yeah, I did implement, as I was telling my leadership the other day, my coaches specifically, I was like, if I die tomorrow, all I want to be known for is that I started the indoor season for Western. So we jump through a lot of hoops for people to come to tryouts for our fall season. And I get a lot of people who email me like the 2 days or 2 weeks after our season started being like, hey, can I come out? And I'm like, sorry, I so wish, but we can't you have to get all these medical forms and all this stuff. So at that point, I'm usually sitting there being like, man, we can't do red shirts either. So we can't have practice rosters. So we have our like 25 players and that's it. So I started an indoor season where it's unofficial. It's not through Western. It's just kind of like the Ultimate team. And we actually compete in the indoor series that Ultimate Canada runs, but it doesn't have to be Western specific, which is really nice. So we don't have to run through all of the paperwork for that. And with that, I organize at least one practice a week. We go through 4s, go through a different system and just get people out. And I usually send email invites for those who have been cut from the team from the fall, or those who've emailed me later saying, come out to our indoor, come join our system, and just play with us. And if they can keep up, if they can toss a Frisbee at relative ability, then they'll play with us in the indoor. And we usually have 3 or 4 months of just practicing indoor and just touching Frisbees and playing with each other and learning our systems and communications and all that good stuff. So actually, I would say over 50% of our current players who are coming to try out for this season, not quite the team quite yet, but who are coming to tryouts, are just from that indoor season. And a lot of them are coming in with so much more knowledge than they would have had if they had just played. Because then their other option would have been just intramurals, maybe London League or, any other league when they go home for the summer. But this has kind of allowed us to have a little bit more longevity, but it is a lot of effort on me and my leadership. And like I book all the fields, it goes onto my credit card and then I get reimbursed at the end of the season. I'm also very fair with like how people pay. So I get like a huge overhead cost for the indoor season, but man, it's worth it. And seeing like the amount of people who are coming out to the tryouts this year and just seeing where they came from and how the indoor season has impacted their abilities and their confidence and their skills, it makes it all worth it. So that's how I combat the very short season that we have for the 6 weeks that we usually have. And it's kind of nice to have that unofficial Western season because they don't have to get any medicals done. They don't have to get any of this weird stuff. And I can get fields wherever I want, because usually at Western we have to use specific fields on campus at certain times. We have to go through a booking system. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Danie, you're probably like experiencing a lot of what Julia is saying from your coaching experiences, right? It's just like her experience as a female coach and in a men's space and all the administration. So I feel like you two are just going to vibe after this podcast and become like coaching buds, you know?
I would love that. I'm always down for more resources, always down to talk strategy about Ultimate and connect with like-minded people. So
Yeah, hit me up. Maybe I'll see you at UCI.
Ooh. I play mixed now, but
I'll cheer you on. It's okay.
Okay. From afar. Love it.
So, Julia, thanks for coming in on the podcast. I know you're busy answering these coach emails. You got work going on as well. So, thank you for spending time with us doing that. And we're going to get a little bit more, Julia, really quick in the subscriber only. So, make sure you stay tuned for that. It's going to be a shorter segment today, but she's going to preview her 3. And I guess I'll do the same. If the AUDL had an all-star team right now and each team gets a representative, who would go on it? Maybe it's not going to be the same as her breakthrough players. Mine might be different than her choices. So stay tuned for that on the subscriber only, and we'll see you on the other side.
Thanks for tuning in, everybody. It was a jam-packed episode. We always think that there's going to be not that much to talk about, and then it's like an hour and a half later, we're still talking Frisbee. So hopefully you've enjoyed this entire ride that we've been on. It was really interesting to hear from Julia, not only with the AUDL coverage, but also the college stuff, because it's just such a different experience in the East. So I feel like I have a lot to learn. How did you experience that, Theo?
I mean, I went to that school for a year for teachers college, and I was actually the first year of when they turned varsity. So I remember we got like a talking about like how if we're wearing the Mustang like jacket, we can't go out to bars and like drink with it on, or like we had to rent cars from that were university approved from like their place. And so like things that maybe other schools don't have to deal with in terms of like you can just drive in your parents' van and stuff like that. So medical forms was a big thing. Had to get a physical before I attended tryouts. So definitely understand where Julia's coming from with all that. But kudos to her, to you, to all the coaches out there that don't get the love. I know we already said this, but thank a coach, a volunteer. Do it today.
Do it today. Now, we've been talking a lot, so this next part, we're not even going to say it. It's going to be a mystery. We're going to leave you hanging because we have a very exciting episode next week planned for you, but we don't want to tell you what it is. We want to create the suspense that we know will build over the week because you'll be burning. Like, what is this episode that's going to be happening? You won't know until you tune in next week.
Yeah, tune in. That's what we have to say. Hit us up on socials. I'm not going to say them all because you already know it. Because we reached over 500 followers. Let's go. On our way to 1,000 somehow, some way. Make your World Games picks. I know we didn't talk about it yet, but that thing is still going on because the tryouts haven't happened yet. So get your World Games picks in through our Instagram. Hit us up on the university group chats or just email us, hucking@ultiworld.com. We love to hear from the audience and even just meeting some of them. Danie, I know you've done this and met some people that say, hey, I listened to your voice on the ride here, which is actually pretty cool to notice. And we've talked about that before. So keep doing that. We'll see you next time.
This is Nick House from Regiment Ultimate in St. John's, Newfoundland. You're listening to the Huckin podcast, your coast-to-coast guide for all things Canadian Ultimate.